Happy Independence Day. Today we're going to bring something back from the archive that we released earlier this year because I think it makes sense, especially as we're trying to get some independence from mediocrity. Check it out. Hey everyone, welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, we have the one and only Andrew Barbuto. And today's episode, we're going to be going back into the archive as we celebrate Independence Day here in the United States. We're going to go try to get an independence from mediocrity. We're going to break away from what the average sellers do because we're top performers and we're different. So what do top performers do and what do average sellers do? Average sellers, well, I ain't going to give you all the tips. He's going to explain that. If this is your first time listening to our podcast on this Independence Day, I ask you to go ahead and subscribe, and we'll notify you every time we have a new episode. And if you've been here as a long-time listener, you're out golfing or doing something, listen to this episode today. I appreciate that because I'm probably on a golf course this morning, by the way, and not doing so well right now. Let's hope that I am. But I want you to go ahead and drop me a message on LinkedIn as well. Let me know you're listening to the podcast. Always great to hear your stories and what's working for you. As I mentioned, this is an episode we did previously, but we're going to dive into what makes top performing sellers so different. And I think you're going to really like this. Check it out. Drew, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, Donald, thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the conversation because every one of us, we like to figure out what's working. We may have our own process and we feel that this is great for our business, for our company, but usually we can find ways to improve. And with top performers, everybody wants to perform well. They want to be one of those top performing sellers. So in this conversation, I'm just looking to learn a little bit more about this, and you have a book around it as well, which we'll get into. But tell us on a day-to-day, man, what do you do? Tell us about Andrew.
So I think that anybody could tell you, obviously, on a sales day, every day is different. But yeah. I usually like to structure my days as, first thing I do in the morning, I try to start about an hour early before everybody else starts working to get ahead of any client requests that come in. I typically will start with whatever is going to be the most impactful for my revenue on a daily basis. So usually what that means is either trying to move proposals forward that are outstanding and trying to move closer to a sale, or it means setting up any meetings that are left unset up. And so the thing that I do is before I send any email, I always make sure that I take a look at my notes in my CRM and I try to find something of value to include in that email. So rather than just checking an email or, hey, following up in the below, it's always, hey, I found some information I think that you might find helpful. And hey, by the way, here's what the latest is. So you provide value first, and then you ask for a request second, if you do ask for a request.
I love it, man. Well, I got a chance to get a peep there into the mind of this top performer. Well, this is I feel like a challenge that most salespeople face right now, and sales leaders, is how can I replicate what top performing sellers are doing across the board? And 2024 has proven to us that this, like many other sales years, in particular this year, we have election year, we have people with still concern with economic spending and so forth, a little bit conservative. So it makes it a little bit more challenging, but top performers are still top producing. And I don't want us to not finish this episode without going into some of those things as far as what are they doing differently. So I'd love to highlight today, maybe you can highlight 3-4 things that you're seeing that top producers are doing that makes them stand out and perform well. And maybe we can go into some examples of each of those. So maybe we can highlight just 4 things. You wrote a book around this as well, what top producers are doing. So we'll talk about that there at the end of this episode. But talk to me. What are they doing differently that most people are not taking advantage of?
Yeah. So I think I could give you, 4, 5, 6. I'll focus on what I think are the most impactful ones. I'll just list them out, and then we can go into them individually if that works.
Okay.
So the first one is time management, better time management. I think that top producers typically will try to allocate as much time as they possibly can to revenue generating activities. So that's number one, time management, spending more time with clients, and that's going to move the needle. Number two is research. So, I could speak for myself, but I've also interviewed a lot of top sales people over the year. And it seems like a common theme is doing more research to find the right people to try to help. And, rather than just the spray and pray approach, trying to go after everybody, they're more targeted so that they make sure that every conversation has a legitimate opportunity to make a sale. So that's number two. Number three is meeting preparation. Now, this is a really big one. And I think it's one of those things that, I see this a lot with newer salespeople, is they don't spend enough time before a meeting preparing for it. So researching the person that you're going to speak to. And it definitely seems that people that are top performers go into a meeting and they already know a lot about you. They've already done research on the prospect. They know, the basic information that you can get online so that they don't have to waste any time at the beginning of a call by asking generic questions.
How's the weather in Albuquerque? It's like,
or something like, asking about the type of company they are, or something that you could easily find online, right? Like, I think top salespeople don't just go into it knowing that information. They also go into it with anything they could have found on the history between the two companies, right? So they utilize their CRM. I think they take full advantage of it. They take very diligent notes and they keep track of them in their CRM. And so I'll just give you that as my last one, which is they will leverage their CRM as a tool to help them be more effective, as opposed to just looking at it as something that is like more of a chore. I just think myself, I think that the CRM is one of the most powerful and valuable tools that we have as salespeople, because what it does is it allows you to track all of your notes from your meetings, right? And so what that allows you to do is to, like I was saying in the beginning, which is provide value that's relevant to that prospect. People, if you're having a lot of meetings, then, which is another thing top salespeople always do, is they're always focusing on prospecting and new business activity. If you're having a lot of meetings, it's going to be hard to remember everything. That's why it's so important that you transfer your notes immediately after your meeting, so that way you can reference them later on when you want to move the deal forward and you want to add personalized value to every touch point.
I love it. So let's go with the first one. So I got time management, research, meeting prep, leveraging CRM. Was there one that I missed in between there? Or was that?
I threw in a bonus one, which is activity. So prospecting activity.
So let's go into that then and talk about that for the top. Time management. What do they do differently when it comes to time management? And maybe we can, for the time purposes, probably could get like 1 or 2 minutes on each of these topics.
Yeah, so time management, I think, is huge. I actually think this is the biggest factor in whether a salesperson is successful or not, and it's how well they spend their time. We only get so much time in the day and in the year. And so how we spend our time is going to have a direct impact as to whether we're successful or not. And so what I think top salespeople do, which is different, is they will reserve anything that's not going to move the needle forward for their revenue. They will reserve that to slower times, and that includes the weekends, and that can include after hours. They want to reserve the time where they're working to anything that does move the needle forward. And that means prospecting activity. It means talking to clients, setting up meetings, putting together proposals. Anything that's quote unquote revenue generating is how they prioritize their time. And they also focus on the biggest opportunities. So everybody knows I think the 80-20 rule, 20% of your accounts generate 80% of your revenue. And so they focus their time on those 20% accounts. And they also try to delegate and automate anything that's more lower value activity that they're able to. So that way they could be more efficient and effective with the hours that they have available to them.
So I agree with you on this idea of the money generating activities. These are revenue generating activities. How do you get the discipline to do that though? Because I know, and I've said this to myself, like I know what should be a revenue generating activity, but then all of a sudden I get this, I get the squirrel, I get this distraction that come in from marketing, or this something I can handle later, but it's a little bit easier to do right now, so I take advantage of it. Or I get a message from internal message from a team from a leader asking for XYZ, and that leads me down a rabbit hole. How do you get the mental fortitude or the discipline, anything that top producers do to make sure that doesn't happen with those distractions?
Yeah, so I think that the best strategy is to put everything on do not disturb and just focus on, I think the most common one that people tend to procrastinate is prospecting.
Yeah,
right?
come on,
It's
bro.
very
Yep.
easy to put that off because you want to, everybody tends to prioritize what is considered time sensitive, right? And people generally don't like doing it, right? So I think that one way to look at it where you ensure you aren't distracted and you do prioritize it is one, putting everything on do not disturb so that way you could focus on it, right? If you turn off your Teams or your Slack for an hour or two, right, it'll be fine. And try to ignore anything that comes in, anything that's not time sensitive, right? And then the main thing is looking at it as you would a actual sales conversation with a client or a prospect. If you're in a meeting with a client or a prospect, you're not letting anything distract you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're focused. So if you looked at your prospecting activity in the same way, which is we're not going to let anything distract us, then that will give you a different mindset of saying, okay, it is time sensitive. It is something that I need to prioritize because if you put it off for too long, then it becomes time sensitive. And usually it's too late at that point.
See, what I like about this is the idea of now I'm instead of this being it's just prospecting time, I could take some time from this and do a meeting, or it's just prospecting time, I can take some time from this and do email, catch up on some internal email. It's just prospecting time, I can do that, go talk to marketing about something. All of those things becomes, it just doesn't value, you don't have to put the right value on it. And I think that's where I'm getting from your message. If you value the time with customers and you make that non-negotiable, make these other times non-negotiable
Right.
as well.
Yep.
Love that. Research. What should I be looking at? What are top producers doing when it comes to research?
And this is actually a great segue because I think research is an area which is even easier than outreach to deprioritize. I look at research, prospecting research is what I'm specifically talking about, as important as actual outreach. And the reason why I say that is, at least in my industry, right? Maybe there are people that are, I'm sure there are plenty of people that are listening that maybe their offering can apply to everybody. But if you work in, more commoditized space, more competitive, complex B2B sales like I do, which is advertising technology, then your offering is not necessarily going to be the best fit for everybody. And so if you spend a little bit more time finding the right people, I look at it as two main goals with my research. One is finding the people that are qualified, so ones that fit my ideal customer profile. I know what to look for. And then two is how can I turn these potentially cold prospects into warm prospects? And so what that entails is finding some sort of connection between us, which could be a teammate if we have a shared connection on LinkedIn. It could be we went to the same school together. We could be in the same LinkedIn group. There could be something that our companies worked together in the past, reviewing all those notes in the CRM system. Those things will give you a significant leg up. So that way, when you do go to prospect, which I separate the two, I try not to do the same at the same time because I don't want to get distracted, then you can use that information. You'll have a much higher chance of getting in contact with those people. And you know that they're people that are worth spending the time to personalize your outreach because you did that in your research. You found, okay, this is somebody that's qualified. This is somebody that is more likely to work with us. And again, for me, it's if our companies had worked together in the past, they're much more likely to respond to me.
Yeah.
And so I use that in my outreach, and it usually gets a better response rate than sending out a whole bunch of messages to people that are, that are never going to respond because you have no idea if they're even qualified or not.
Okay. So research, making sure the ICP, and I think that's a critical component. I've been in companies where we didn't know the ICP, so we're guessing. And when you're doing a lot of guessing and doing a lot of research, you get distracted. And I think you really focused the messaging on that. There's prospecting research, so
Mhm.
finding a way into the account, finding if there's a potential challenge that they're going through right now, or if there's any relationships that you guys have had in the past. But that doesn't take like 6 hours, right? You're doing enough research to help you to not sound like a buffoon when you get on the phone with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say maybe not 6 hours, but
Yeah, definitely
carving
not
out a
6 hours.
carving out a couple hours, I think, to really dig in. Right, I gotta look at it as like I'm a detective.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find these accounts which are most likely to respond, most likely to work with me, and that means using all of my research tools. So LinkedIn, my CRM, the various lead generation tools that I have at my disposal, and the contact information tools. And so, you know, the goal is to find a list of, let's call it 10 to 15 prospects, which are what I consider to be warm prospects because we have some sort of connection and I know that they're most likely to be qualified. And if you can find 10 of them and 4 of them respond and you get 2 meetings out of it, that's a very productive, outreach session in my role. So
Yeah.
that's really always the objective, is to find a few leads that end up with meetings.
So I got this idea now. If I got some research, I mean, sorry, I'm managing my time. I'm doing some research. I'm also, making sure that I understand the ICP, understand what some of the challenges are. I'm going into the meeting prep. What should I have that I should prepare for in that meeting?
Yeah, so they're all kind of work together, right? And
I
so
know,
that's kind
right?
of the way that
It's like good.
that's where my book is structured. Is it's a 10-step process. It's number one, the onboarding process, kind of separate, but it's for like a new salesperson. But then from there, it's the research. Then it is the outreach using that research. Then it is the meeting preparation using the research and doing more research, which I'll get into. Then it's the
Hmm.
meeting and you use the research in the meeting, and then you go on and on and on. But the one commonality is that those learnings don't go anywhere. You reference them regularly and you only build on them. And so to answer your question about the meeting preparation, it's kind of like taking that research that you did and taking it a step further, right?
Mm.
I'm looking to find some details in my initial research to turn them into a warm prospect, something in common that we have. Now that I know that they've want to set up time with me, now I need to dig deeper, right? I need to look into the history of the account. I need to look at their, not only, maybe I'll look at their company's LinkedIn. I'll see what they're posting about recently. I'll go to their company's website, see there's a ton of information you can get that's valuable from a company's website. I'll go to my prospect's LinkedIn profile. I'll look at their description that they've written about each other, written about themselves. That's very telling, because it tells you what they're responsible for and it tells you what they care about. Those are the type of learnings that I want to use when I head into a meeting. And if there's anything that I haven't been able to find out from my meeting preparation, I'll just send them an email and say, hey, doing my research, this is the information that I think will help make us the most productive conversation possible. I wasn't able to find it out from my research. Do you have some time to answer these questions? If not, we'll hit on them at the top of the call.
Mm. I love it. And what I like about this too is that I'm looking at it at two different things. You're doing research to understand if they're a fit and if there's a avenue, how can you help them? And then
Mm-hmm.
the second step research is more on, helping to ensure that conversation go well. And I find that in the past, when I've made this mistake, being straight up, I'm looking at that second level research and then skipping over that first part because it can get so distracting. Like somebody tell you go research, so you just go research and you're wasting your time. But making sure I don't want to focus on the wrong thing, and that's what I love about the guidance here. Find the angle first, find the reason, and then now this can how can I use the type of research I should be doing is helping to establish that value more so in the conversation, right?
And the research has a big impact on your time management. The
Mm-hmm.
reason why I say that is because one of the worst things that you could do for your time management is to be calling on non-qualified prospects,
Oh my
to be
goodness,
having
yeah.
non-qualified prospect meetings, right? because we know how difficult it is to set up these meetings, right? So if we've just spent all this time following up to have a meeting and then they're not actually qualified, or worse, they're not qualified, but then they end up working with you, that could be one of the worst things for your time management, because then you're spending all this time with a company and then you're not getting any revenue from them, right? So I also look at that as, hey, I'm making the best use of my time by making sure I'm only talking to people that I know are most likely going to be qualified. And then I confirm that at the top of the meeting.
Yeah. I like that. They're qualified to talk to you. So good, man. Well, let's talk about the prospecting activities. How top performers, is that what we said? Activities, prospecting activities? Was that
the two go hand in hand. I think the prospecting activities and using CRM.
Yeah.
It's really just putting the research into action. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but I use a combination of, the phone, LinkedIn, and email. And, I think that you need to make sure that you have at least 7 touch points before you can expect a response from a prospect. That's been my experience. And so what that means to me is to continue to sequence my outreach so that way I'm reaching them on a variety of different channels. I'm also going wide and deep at my most qualified prospects. So I don't want to just call on one person, because I don't know if that's going to be the person that's going to be the decision maker, or that's somebody that's going to be interested. I want to start at the CEO and work my way down.
I love it. I like that idea of the wide and deep with the focus accounts. And I think that's what, especially when you're talking about the deal sizes that you're talking about and, the complexity that you're going after, it's definitely not the spray and pray. And you have to, put some mental fortitude in it. And I think that's where most salespeople actually fall into. If you were to be totally honest with ourselves, in the B2B space right now, most of us are going to have something that it's not just like the straight up commodity, like, buy 1 bottle, get 2 free. Like you're going to need to put in, the buyers are going to make a decision, and they're going to adjust, and they need somebody that can help them do so. Otherwise they can just be they can just rely on an order taker. So that it comes from a whole nother level. But leveraging CRM, and I know we could be CRM agnostics, but you mentioned a couple of reasons why that, a couple times about CRM. Let's go a little bit deeper into what are some of the best practices you're doing to leverage a CRM as a seller. You mentioned it's a gold mine, so to speak.
Yes, it is. And I think that the one thing that it gets used for least, but is actually the most valuable, is to keep track of notes. And so for every meeting, for every demo, every follow-up meeting, every outing, any information that you can gather during the sales cycle is something that should be logged in your CRM, because then it will allow you to be, essentially what it does is it allows you to not lose your place where you were, right? So if I have a meeting with a prospect and then for whatever reason they weren't ready to buy at the time and they go dark, but then 7 months later, they reach out to me and they say, okay, now might be a better time. Let's get on a call. If I didn't log any notes in my CRM to reference, then there's a chance that I wouldn't recall all of their needs. And I would therefore have to start from the beginning and say, hey, answer the same questions that I had asked them already and received responses from months earlier. And so what it does is not only it allows you to have a more productive conversation with them, but also it gives you a head start, because what I'll start my meetings with and say, hey, the last time we spoke, you had these needs, you were using these tools. Are those still, is that still the case, right? And so I'll even reference, okay, well, the reason why you didn't work with us back then is because of this reason. Is that still the case? And if it's not, well, then there's no reason why we couldn't continue to pursue this and progress the deal. Now I start all the way from where I was, as opposed to starting from the beginning and trying to do my fact finding.
Yeah, and I always find this one interesting too, because hear me out on this. Like you and I, you probably have tons of meetings, like you talk about time management here, same thing with your prospect. sometimes the sellers expect, they don't prepare for this meeting that they had 3 weeks ago to pick back up to it, and then they expect the buyer to know where you're starting off from, and it just feels like it elongates a sales cycle. It makes it a waste of time for me and for you, and it just makes it overall feels like you're not that professional as I first thought, or maybe your company is, but now you're seen as not professional. And for all of that, it just makes it, the CRM could really save a bunch of time. But oftentimes people are not taking advantage of it. Man, I love this, man. So good, so practical, man.
Yeah, I would use a different word even from professional. I would say your credibility is lost.
Ooh, one more time for the folks in the back.
Your credibility is lost. One, it makes it seem like, okay, you're not an expert. You're not somebody that's taking this seriously because I already gave you this information, so why am I repeating myself? But also, it shows that, you don't respect their time, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, I want to make best use of both of our time. And so I'm going to do everything on my end that I can to make sure that it happens and make your life as easy as possible. That's really the job of the salesperson.
I absolutely love this, man. Listen, the book is great. Tell me how we can find the book.
Yeah, so you can go to my website at andrewbarbuto.com/book, andrewbarbuto.com/book. Check out my YouTube channel at Andrew Barbuto. The book will be available on pre-sale in October. So you'll be able to pick it up everywhere that books are available.
Amazing. Everything we talked about today is in a book, so you guys can definitely check it out. Highly recommend it. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. We got some practice to go do, some preparation, some research. I got to go leverage this stuff.
And thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate you. Hey, go ahead and connect with Andrew. I told you this was going to be great. Happy Independence Day again, and hope you enjoy a nice hamburger or a steak or something on me. Well, I'm hopefully the content helped you to be able to earn the money so you can buy that steak. You know what I mean? But hopefully you're having a good time with your friends and your family. Appreciate you today. Go ahead and connect with Andrew on LinkedIn. Tell him you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist. I know he would appreciate that. Listen, I do this because I want you to thrive and I want you to succeed. It's definitely helped me over the years with the ideas and things that we're learning from the podcast and the experiences that we've had. And I want to help you. If you want to get improvement in your sales performance and break away from mediocrity and gain independence from that, check out our mastermind, thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Would love for you to apply. Thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to celebrate this Independence Day. I want you to be happy, but most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. See you on the next one.